Welcome to the Books and Beer Book Club, coming to you from Cercis Brewing Company in Columbus, Wisconsin. We're a different kind of book club, only reading books by authors who can visit us in person or via Zoom for the discussion. We've been going strong since 2015, meeting nearly every month. We're now making these fun and informative discussions available to you on video. I'm your host, Valerie Beal. I'm an author myself, and I enjoy interviewing our guest authors and facilitating the questions from our readers both in person and on Zoom. We hope you enjoy this replay. To join us live, please check out our schedule on our Facebook page at Books and Beer Columbus.
So thank you for making the trip out from Waukesha, now your new home in Waukesha.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So I had to look up the last time you were here because I couldn't remember. And it was January of 2018.
Okay, that's sooner than I thought.
And I obviously wasn't here.
It was here.
Were we in this?
We were here.
We were here?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was here. This is the only place I've been, so.
well, all right then. You would remember
been
better
doing
than
this
me
a
because
while,
these
but-
sort of blended together for me.
But I wasn't even your first year, was it? I mean, how long have you been doing it?
We started in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about
Yeah.
whether we, decide to celebrate at 9 years just for fun, but we got all thrown off because we were going to do stuff and then the pandemic hit and,
Yeah. Yeah, so
do
it's been a while.
like a little gathering and invite all the authors back that we've had through
That
the
would be
years. I think that would be
fun.
really fun. We should probably do
You
that.
should do that, definitely.
And then maybe we'd have to do like a weekend so
Yeah.
that people can make
Stay
it.
overnight
Yeah,
at your house.
sure.
Sure, just got room.
Sure. Bring a tent.
I was gonna say you have lots of
Bring a
land.
tent. I got bathrooms. Hi there. Come on in. Hi. So, so we've been yes, we have been going a while, haven't we?
Mhm.
I don't know. It totally works.
So
It
how many
totally works.
authors is that? Quick off the top of your head.
Well, we didn't, so we had some months off and we sometimes don't do January. So, I mean, we're in our 8th year, so roughly,
80-ish.
yeah, we've had people back, right? We've
Like
had
80,
authors back. Yes.
That's nice.
Well, we could do, you know what I should do sometime is just do a full list. It would be interesting, even if it's just the thumbnails of all the book covers.
Oh, that would be
That
cool.
would be fun. I try to keep them together on one bookshelf in my house, but I read a lot on my Kindle and that doesn't work so good, right?
No.
So, but of all those books, so there's a segue here, I
I
promise.
see.
Yes, so of all those books, though, we typically don't read dystopian, right? I mean, I think the only other one was Prep for Doom, which was an anthology, and it was Bria.
That.
Bria Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she,
What about Campbell? What was his name? It was a little dystopian too.
Campbell,
Rich.
the guy from
No,
Lodi?
Ryan. Ryan.
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. His was too. And that was more futuristic tech. It was very, it was the
Ryan
techno,
Campbell?
yes.
Okay.
Something bait, clickbait.
Oh, yeah, it was called Clickbait. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Woo, you win the gold star, Mary. Mary wins. No, that was it, because that was more of a, like the technology got away from everybody, right? In that one.
I just remember.
That was like 2 years ago.
I didn't read that one.
So, so the Prep for Doom one was an interesting thing because it was an anthology. So Bria, who wrote an endorsement for you, had read and I
Right.
knew that she would like your book
Right.
because of that. But she has other books in her. She has other books she wrote.
She not only wrote an endorsement, but she wrote an awesome
She
endorsement.
did write an endorsement, but it actually is fitting. So I thought,
Thank you.
and she was perfect though because she not only creates full-length books in this genre, but she I know reads heavily in this genre
Yeah,
too. So
Yeah,
but that was that anthology was really interesting because it was set around one event and it was very linear. And I think that everybody had to probably read the chapter before them or the story before them because it was collaborative in that way. And then eventually in some of the later chapters, some of the characters
okay, all right.
jumped in.
What's the name of the
So
book?
Prep for Doom.
Prep for Doom. Okay.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, I thought it was kind of interesting, but
all different authors and different perspectives.
right. But we typically
Yeah,
don't
that's-
read dystopian. Now I read stories like this all the time.
Yeah,
So I was very excited when I heard about your idea to start with. And I was like, oh, when are you going to finish that?
and then
Hurry,
you
hurry,
wrote
hurry.
a nice blurb for me on the second book.
It's good. And the premise of it is just fascinating. I mean, there's so many things we can talk about tonight about themes and, good versus evil obviously is a really obvious one,
Right.
but just the idea of whether you could quantify like a particle And I love your imagination. I love the way your brain works. So okay, so but this is quite a shift from your Leo Townsend work.
Mhm.
So I want you to address that a little bit and talk to me about like so where did this idea come from? And I kind of know that already from like, the story you wrote, but to shift from something that's very different to this and why, and like why and how?
Yeah, it's a good question. And other people have asked me that too. It's like, this is so different from what you've written before. I love to read it. I love dystopian too. So that's a big part of it. But the idea came from actually J.K. Rowling. I'm like, good versus evil. I want to write a huge, epic good versus evil kind of a thing. And so then that got my brain going. And I'm like, well, what if you could just take all of evil and collect it? And then what would you do with it? And where would it go? And then how would the world look without evil? And so that just kind of led from what it actually started as a short story.
What
So-
did you write the short story for? Was it a contest or a class? Or?
So years ago, I lived in the Rockford area, and I, with some 4 other women, started a group called Imprint. And it was for writers. And one of the things we had in our organization was Prompt Club.
Oh.
And so if you wanted to, you could join Prompt Club, and I did. And once a month, we would do a prompt. So as a group, we would pick a prompt. Next month, we'd come in, we'd write 1,000 words or less, and then read it to each other and get some critique back from it. And so that particular prompt was pick a photo of something you want to write about. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I picked the mushroom cloud from the atom bomb. And so the short story is called The Bomb. You can get it on off my website. And this character that I wrote was just so fun. And I was writing the second book in the Leo Townsend series, but this guy just wouldn't let it go.
So you had this idea. I mean, this
For a
predates
while.
the other books coming out pretty much. Or
No, so the second book came out in 2018. So it was probably around 2016, 17 when I was working on the
isn't
second.
it fun? Isn't it funny though how long it takes? Ideas simmer for a long
Right.
time sometimes
Right.
before they like.
Well, and Stephen King was famous for that. He's like, oh, people will tell you as a writer, you can have a notepad by your bed, and you wake up at 3 a.m, you gotta write that idea down. He's like, if you can't remember that idea in the morning, it's a crap idea. It's not going to go anywhere. It's the ideas that linger for years and years, that there's something there. So yeah, I knew when I finished the second book with
Yeah.
Leo that I had to write
Just
this
shift over
one.
to this.
And it was just originally one book. It was adult psychological thriller.
Okay.
And I had read another book by Susan K. Quinn. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's in the Charlotte area. She said, for love or money. And as artists, we don't make money. And how can you make money? And so her book is basically you can do both. So your first book is the one you love. It's the passion. It's something you really want to write about, and you may or may not make money from that. And then after that, maybe your next project, write it for money, and not to say you're still not passionate about it, but then maybe pick a genre that sells more, that does a little better, a genre that you read anyway, that you're interested in. And I always loved YA dystopian. I thought I can maybe adjust this story for a YA dystopian. The hardest part was writing the trials. I fought that. My head fought it.
Oh.
And then when I wrote them, I'm like, this is the favorite part of the book for me.
Yeah, actually, I have notes on that.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
So when you're creating, so you've created a short story, but you don't have you don't have all the questions answered that you would need answered for a full length book.
Right.
So you've got your character down, you've got some of the, the meat there. So if you're trying to create this world and you're trying to think about, it's obviously dystopian, it's going to be futuristic. What the heck has happened in the world? And you're trying to build that world. Like, did you just sit down and brainstorm? Like, how did you decide to create like this world where, evil reigns? Well, some people would argue that that's what we're living in now anyway,
Yeah.
but it's worse.
And it's not that-
worse than now.
It's
So,
not that far in the future.
Yeah.
It's only 40 years in the
right.
future.
Okay.
But I'm trying to kind of get away from that a little bit, but I'm what's called a pantser. Some people call it discovery writers. I write off the seat of my pants. I don't know what's going to happen until I write it, which is wonderful for me, but it also takes a lot longer than somebody who can plot things out. So I do a little bit of both. And so I didn't have it in the other idea I had about the setting. Everything else was Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, for
And
sure.
he doesn't really describe the setting at all. And so there was really nothing in the first few drafts, but then I had a critique group that said, we want to know more about this. We want to be more into this story.
Mhm.
And so I developed it a little bit more. So the setting got developed more and more, the more I wrote the book.
Sure. And I think, but you don't have to answer. Now, there's going to be people who will have wanted you to answer more questions about the world. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you've gotten any pushback from
No.
people. But sometimes people they're the ones who want that detail. You don't need that detail to understand a story. You just need to accept this is the way the world is right now. There's this evil and there's a way to contain it. And it's going to make the world a better place. Or so we think.
We'll see.
Or so we think.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've read book 2 already. So book 2 came out, 2 weeks ago?
No,
week?
November 20th. So yeah,
Yeah.
couple weeks.
Three,
Yeah.
almost like 3.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I read that one and
Here, it's right
yeah.
here. Yeah.
so
So she not only read it, but she wrote an amazing blurb.
am I
for
on?
it.
Am I on it?
You should be somewhere. Sylvia, isn't this you right here?
Yeah.
Heart pounding, page turning, action from beginning to end.
It's true. It's true. I wrote a longer one. That's the good clip.
Yes.
It's a little like,
Yes.
it's a cut quote. So
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I needed. That's all I personally needed is that we're just going to accept that this is the way the world is today. There's evil and there's people who are trying to extract this evil. And here we go. Here's the premise.
Has everybody read it or not yet?
I haven't.
No.
I just heard about this at the library.
So did you guys finish?
I have 33 minutes left in the book.
Okay. All right. Well,
How was the setting? Was it enough? Did you get a good enough picture of what was going on? Yeah.
so there's one reviewer, who wants you to, why wasn't there an angel particle identified if the devil particle was
Well,
identified?
but there's the God particle. That's where that's
Yeah.
where the title comes from. In real life, it's the God particle.
Yeah.
So,
So
I mean, we can go into that a little bit. It's really not a God particle. It's a whole thing.
Quantum physics.
There is quantum physics. I like quantum
Me
physics.
too. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So it made me laugh because I thought I was reading through the reviews today and I'm like, really? Like, this is what you're I think it was on the vessel.
Oh, on the vessel. Okay.
Maybe. I don't remember. I can't say for sure.
That person
Because
doesn't
you
know
quite a
enough
few,
about.
you're getting enough, you're getting, building a lot of
It
reviews.
takes a while, but
Oh,
it's
it
getting
totally
there.
does, but-
Yeah,
And I was scrolling.
I
so
am getting
it
nice reviews.
But it just made me laugh. I'm like,
Not an angel, a God.
but I just thought I'd like throw that out there. Somebody wants an angel particle, by the way. So work that in. No, I'm just kidding.
And
Yeah, I don't have it here. I don't think I would like that.
Strategy wise, so you initially thought it's going to be adult
Psychological thriller.
thriller. You pull back, say, okay, let's do this as YA. It's going to be a little more marketable. And it's true. There's a really, really
We will see.
big, well, there should be. I mean, in
Yeah,
theory,
yeah, I
when you
think
do
so.
your market research, you did
Yeah.
it right. Like that, there is a
Right.
good,
Right.
core readership out there. And a lot of the people who read that are like,
Well, it's
I read
fascinating.
that. I mean, it's like YA doesn't mean that you have to be a teenager
It's
to read it.
broader than just YA. It goes through, it's really about a 14, 15-year-old on up,
Yes.
I would say.
Yes.
And only because, not because there's too much violence or sex or anything like that. It's just
It's the age of the protagonist.
the philosophical aspects and stuff. I think would be more interesting to an older teen,
Probably.
or middle to older teen.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
true too.
so you self-published, you didn't have to answer that?
I did. I self-published these 2 books, and actually the other 2 are coming out next year.
Ah,
So, yeah, that's another discussion.
So, but no, we should talk about that though, because it's super smart. So in the world of like binge watching everything, binge reading, to have a tight production schedule, but it also means you had to have, so tell us about that.
Okay.
So you have what was written. So when you get to the point where this is being published,
Mhm.
what do you have written? So this is 2. And then 3 and 4,
They're all written,
they're all written. Okay.
but 3 and 4 are in editing stages right
Okay.
now. So 3, I had feedback from my editor, Tim Storm is in Madison, who I just adore. And so I am working on hopefully the final draft
Of 3.
of 3 that I will get to him January 2nd, get some more feedback from him. And then I have some amazing beta I would say critique readers,
Yeah.
Kaylin being one of them, who I have 2 or 3 of those that look it over just one more time.
It's smart.
And
People
so-
see different things, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They do. I have different feedback. One of them is from my critique group, my original way back critique group, and she should charge because she's so good.
She catches things.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that it's called The Runner. You read book 2, you'll know why it's called The Runner. It's called The Runner, and I'm hoping that'll come out late spring. And then in the meantime, book 4, and my only problem with book 4 is Tim Storm is very high in demand.
Ooh,
And
so you
so
gotta meet.
I only
his-
I'm scheduled for September. Now, ideally I'd want to be like June, but I said, put me on the list in case somebody else, but at least by September, I'll get him hopefully a very decent. So I'm hoping by the end of the year, the 4th book will be done and published.
So
and it
4
might be
books,
early.
4 books in 2 years.
Yeah, but really started in the first one in 2017 and wrote all of them, within the couple of years after that. So even though it sounds like they're coming out, I'm not writing them, every 4 months and
Right.
finishing them. I
So-
couldn't do that.
You had, so this is something that when I wrote my initial book, I didn't know I was going to do a series, which means
Which is
that
the
when
same of my first series.
you go to do the next book, then you're
hard.
married to everything you made decisions on in book
Yeah.
1.
Yeah.
So this way though, maybe you weren't finished with book 4 completely, but
Right.
you had all the plot points there, right?
Right.
So like you knew you weren't going to be like wanting to contradict something that and if you did, you could have changed book 1 at that point.
Right.
I mean, it would have been complicated
Well,
to do.
so
but-
my first 2 books from way back
Yeah.
are it's a series, but they're standalone. They're the same main character and some other characters that are similar, but each story is a different story. This is one story over 4 books.
Right.
And it ends, when you finish it, it ends in a cliffhanger. So you'd be pissed if the next story wasn't available. Hopefully you'll be pissed because you like the story.
Well, I was really, so I had waited
It had
to
to be
read it.
written at the same time
Yes.
because it's really just one book over 4. Yeah.
So Runner, and then remind me the
The
fourth.
Renegade.
Renegade.
The Runner and the Renegade.
Okay.
yeah.
Does it wrap up? So we're
It
not
does.
just at the end of
Yeah, oh, no, there's
No,
there's
no.
yeah, I knew you would not do a cliffhanger then. That's just
No,
cruel.
no, that would
Plus
be.
that invites bad reviews because people get
Right,
mad if
right.
you don't do that.
Well, then you're expecting 5 and 6 and 7, and I
Yeah.
really, and at this point, there may be, when I finish 4, I might be, oh, there'd be other books, but then that would be 6.
So, about how many thousand words are these?
75.
Yeah, so
The
like a
book-
typical YA kind of
Book
ish.
3 is it's like 95.
Do you think you're gonna
I don't
pull
think
it
it's
back?
gonna
You
be
don't
able
think you
to,
can? Yeah.
because it's from 3 different points of view.
Oh, okay, so that is not, the first 2 aren't.
The first 2 are just Paul's point of view.
Yeah. Ooh, that's fun.
Mhm.
That's sort of like Sarah. Oh, this is a voting sheet. Sarah Donnan, who she switched to the multiple points of view in like her 3rd book
Mhm.
and stuff. Was that hard?
No, it had to be done.
You had
So
to do
there's-
it.
It's actually 2 first-person points of view and a 3rd-person point of view.
I like that. I like the shift.
And yeah.
Is it
actually
all
works.
present?
It's all present.
They're all
tense.
present tense.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Do you
yeah.
like writing in present tense?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Leo
yeah.
Townsend stuff in
No,
past?
no, they're past tense. And
Yeah,
what's
okay.
interesting, one of the comments that my editor had on book 3 was the 3rd-person scenes started out from her perspective, but then were omniscient. So like another, narrator.
Oh, okay.
And he said, you need to focus on her. And I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't written this in so long. I forgot how to do that.
Yeah, like
So
you gotta
that's-
come back in
I
and
did. I
go,
was like,
get
okay,
your,
that's
like,
right.
your
That's how
sea
this
legs, your
stuff is
manuscript
worked.
sea legs again.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Well, so this is what you're doing is what I always tell people to do if they can. Indie pub and rapid release.
Mhm.
And now there's different ways of rapid release where it might even be tighter than this,
Right.
but this is illogical in terms of, prep time and getting that editing done. But like you have all your covers already.
Yeah, I do. Oh, I just got the 4th one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, and I've seen that just the little snippets because of the media kit. And we did
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
brown,
Right, right,
wrap.
you have-
So we don't
yes, yes.
show everything because they're not.
And
like,
nobody's seen this, the 3rd.
they're good.
Yeah.
They're good. Okay, so who,
Other than Caitlin.
so who did you have do the cover design?
So this is through a organization called Reedsy, which is in England. Now Reedsy is like, if you're, I don't know how detailed you want me to get, but Reedsy is a warehouse is quite right, but it's
it's
there's
a
editors, there's
it's a clearinghouse.
publicists,
Clearinghouse, but
maybe.
or like a listing service of
Oh.
professionals in the industry.
Right.
It's like Fiverr, but only for publishing.
Right, and these are yeah, these people have to have some really good credentials. Like the man that I hired, his name is Patrick Knowles, and he's been doing this for 20, 30 years. And when I say designing these, he's designed them for all the big houses, the big publishing houses and some famous authors.
You can tell they're very
And
well
so the nice thing about it is you can go on there, you can get their resumes and everything else, and then you can send them what your project is. They'll come back with what, how much it would charge and how long it would take them and everything else. It's wonderful. So I adore him. And what's really cool too is the third book. You've met Gage in the books, and so he's a young Black man. And in the third book, he's on the cover. And so my designer's son, he's a white man, but his partner is Black, and so his son is darker, and so he's actually
like the model.
He's on the cover. No, he's actually on the cover. So that's kind of personal. It's kind of
That's
fun.
fun.
We can do that. Yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Reezy's nice. So
He's great. I recommend them.
it's like you're right, like you have to have credentials and they'll check. They don't
Yes.
let you get a listing there unless you actually like clearly can show a portfolio, what
Right,
you're doing.
right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
have endorsements.
And they're very
stuff.
easy to work with. Everything is,
Were they at the conference?
they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were at the 20 books to 50K conference in Vegas together, and they had all these industry professionals. So that's really an independent publishing centric conference.
Yes. Oh,
It's
yes.
all
yes.
about, owning your own, trajectory, your own path
Right.
on this.
It's really I don't know about you, but it's the first conference I've ever been to just on the business end of writing rather
Oh.
than on craft.
It was exceptional,
Unbelievable.
even though I got a little irritated about
we both
AI. AI writing. We were,
2,000 attendees at this. Is the world's largest writing conference.
yeah.
So
I mean, they did some craft talks.
it was I went to a few of those,
Yeah.
which were nice.
And,
yeah.
but,
Yeah.
I'm always the one who's saying, we really need to focus more on the business end of publishing, because most authors, whether they're with a traditional house or not, have to know some of the marketing
Yeah.
things, because you don't always get help from your publisher to do the marketing. So, and I'm always like, I wish they'd done more. And there's usually like one or two things that they
Right.
put in. This was the other way around. And it
Yeah.
was all about, so my
Yeah.
head was just like,
Right. Right.
it's too much information.
You feel like a newbie all over again.
You
'cause
do
you're learning
kinda.
this stuff.
And we're not,
No,
but you
you're doing
feel
this
like
for
it.
more. Well, you're more advanced at the marketing stuff than I am, but yes.
but still, I mean, like the
Wow.
people, like there are people with 15,
Oh,
20,
Oh,
30 book
we were
series.
such
We're
slackers.
babies with this.
There were people on the success panel that had 100+ books, and they were 10 to 20 years younger than me.
Yeah.
The one man who actually founded the organization said he had his goal was to write 30 books and publish, not just write them, but publish them in 1 year. And he got 29, and he was bummed that he didn't get the 30. And I don't even know how that's physically possible.
Quantity doesn't equal quality.
Well, exactly, but they're making 6 and 7 figures a month, these people. They're doing very well that way. But then what we have to do is step back and say, but what do we want and what are we comfortable
Yes.
with? And
And
for
what
me,
are-
the
what are-
joy of it, the
Yes.
money would be super nice.
Well, no,
But the joy is the reading and
It's
and
what's your
the
goal?
journey of the writing and figuring
Yes.
out these stories. And if it takes me years, I'm okay with that, because I
Yeah.
want that story to be as good as it
Yeah.
possibly can get. And I enjoy doing that.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
and everybody has different thresholds, for what they feel is acceptable to put out under their own name.
Right.
And then if it's the marketplace that decides whether it's good or not at this point versus a publisher or an agent,
Right.
if the readers are not buying it, they're not buying it. So, you can throw anything up on Amazon, but if it sucks, so
Yeah.
it's gotta be at least that good.
Yeah.
Like to
Yeah.
the thresholds.
Spent 29 books in a
I
year.
know. I don't know.
I don't know.
Clearly he wasn't doing any childcare.
He was not. He had no other life. He wasn't eating.
Sleep,
He
we're
was very
sleeping.
thin.
We're sleeping.
Sleeping.
We're like, and what medications
Are
did
you
you
on?
take
What you
to
on?
make it through?
Exactly.
So, are you gonna do audio books?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
I'm thinking I've never done a Kickstarter, and I was thinking that might be a good chance to try Kickstarter.
I think it would. You
To
should
do
talk to,
audiobooks.
you should talk to Sylvia.
Did she? She did.
She did a
She
Kickstarter.
did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I will talk to her about it.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
definitely, when all 4 books are out, then I want to get somebody. So I want the same person to do obviously all 4 books. So
Yes.
Well, I was thinking male, so I probably not. Yeah.
So
I'd love that, because my first two books are audiobooks.
People love audio.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I loved him to do it again, but it was super expensive to do it that way.
That's right. It is. And there's
Yeah.
other ways you can do
Yeah.
there's other ways to do it, that aren't quite
Not
so basic.
AI, I mean.
No, not AI. No.
Okay, no.
What is acceptable AI?
What is
Think
it?
someone reading your might be acceptable.
I think that's an individual choice.
So the main problem for
It's not acceptable.
not
Not the creative part, obviously.
no, the most authors that are not happy with AI, the problem is that the AI systems have been built on other people's work that was acquired without their permission or payment. So it's not necessarily, so a lot of things get thrown back when you criticize AI because there's a lot of people very much in favor of it. And they're like, oh, you're scared of technology. No, we're not scared of technology. But the idea here is that, like, right now there's a lawsuit against OpenAI, which developed ChatGPT, and it's
John Grisham.
Jodi Picoult. I mean, there's a really big list of famous authors, but their books had been pirated into this vast library. That library got used to do the learning, to teach the system how writing works, how story works, how plotting works. And so now people can use that, not necessarily, I suppose you could say, write like John Grisham.
Oh, yeah,
You
could.
can, or Hemingway, although some of them be in the public domain, right? Unless his
Family.
estate has done things with it to
Yeah.
keep it live and, in copyright.
But it's the
protection.
same with audiobooks. So Stephen Fry, who does this, Harry
Oh,
Potter
tell
books,
that story.
they
Yeah.
stole his voice. They used it for other things. He heard his own voice.
It was
Yeah.
narrating he was a documentary narrator and he'd never signed on to the project, but they took his catalog of work for the Harry Potter books and engineered his voice. Yeah.
Saying that. So, that
So-
makes you wonder, where are they getting these voices for AI? And did they pay those people?
Right.
And,
Right.
and I like the human experience of working with a human being who's going to read these, act these stories.
Right.
Rob Doyle, who did my first two books, was amazing. It was one of the best experiences of my life.
And you see,
Just
he was an
doing that.
actor,
He's
right?
an actor from American Players Theater.
Yes.
And it just was such a thrill. Now I'd probably hire somebody, through a software, whatever.
one of the
So
companies.
I may or may not get to meet that person, but I still want to be able to work with them and talk to them and say, this is what I'm going for. I
But-
can't imagine using AI.
Well, and I think it's probably smart of you to do it all at once too, in terms of you'll get a better rate. When you
Yes.
say, look, there's 4 books, I want you to do all 4, and they're gonna
Yes.
probably bring their price per finished hour down. So-
Yes.
Now, the interesting thing is if you use generative AI to write a book, saying you're putting prompts into ChatGPT and you're creating content, that is technically not supposed to be allowed to be copyrighted.
Right. So there's another
So-
issue. So don't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So then what?
Never yours.
So whose is it? Whose is it? Who gets the?
Okay, so you mentioned that writing the actual trial. So they come to this building and you have to then create all these levels that you weren't sure you were going to go with that at first, or
Right.
you were nervous about writing it, or
Well, I wanted trials.
yeah.
And then I thought, do you remember 1970s? I forget what year it was, the Towering Inferno.
I love that movie.
It's been a long time since we had something crazy like that in a building.
Like the Persuaded adventure.
Right. It's in a building downtown. Of course, it would be just decrepit. And so then you could do these things. And the first trial, the long wait, that was always there.
Mhm.
And I had a couple critique partners say, they're just sitting around. That's not much of a story. My editor said, no, you're raising the tension there.
Oh, you
Yeah.
totally were.
Yeah.
You can. You're
And I
waiting.
improved on it since they commented, so it was a little bit of that, oh, they're not doing anything. But then there was, so that was that one. I think I always knew there's going to be an elevator.
Oh, there had to be an elevator
Yeah.
scene because of
Yeah.
the height of the building.
Right. So those two were automatically in there. The cafeteria came later, the escape room, I think I threw in there, and then Caitlin and I went to an escape room in Madison.
Aren't
and I
those
was
fun?
to research on how that works. And it was so fun. It gave me a lot of really good ideas, especially the logic and the clever,
Yes.
the cluing and all that stuff.
Yes.
So that came up. The holograms and stuff, I needed to have the emotional tension and
Right.
that kind of thing.
Well, and you're testing different things.
Right.
You're
Right.
trying to, see, are they going to be helpful or kind or moral or, what are they going to do with
Exactly.
these texts?
Yeah.
So it made me think of in a good way, like, when they do some of the stuff in Divergent,
Mhm.
like there's, some of the testing, different things
Yeah.
with the one faction that Triss is part of.
It's been a while since I've read
Yeah.
Diversion, but yeah,
Well, it's probably, did you avoid some of the,
I only read the first book, so I
Okay.
couldn't
did you ever watch the movies?
Yes, did I
Okay.
watch? I think I must have.
Yeah. But also I was,
wasn't a fan.
I was thinking too, in a way, like Hunger Games, like the second one, or is it the third? I don't know, where it's where they bring the people back from that previously competed, and they have to figure that dial out,
Mhm.
and there's all
Right.
this,
A little bit more
right,
thinking involved in that.
right. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's smart, and and for knowing that that's a lot of your audience,
Right.
I mean, it was a really good way, but a good twist, like to
Good.
take that kind of idea. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and
I
think
like
that's
that a
good
lot.
For everybody, I like that.
Mhm.
The different.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the people who read it? What was your favorite trial?
Oh. Favorite.
Did you have one?
Mildly, but the elevator was pretty intense.
The elevator was, I would say
Yeah.
that that's the one that had me going.
David? What do you think?
I like
The logic?
Logic. Well, and I read it enough long ago that, I mean, I'm like, don't remember all the details of it. I thought that the waiting in the beginning was smart.
Yeah.
in the auditorium.
Yeah. And it's like,
Well, that would tick you off.
yeah.
I mean, more than anything, come on, let's get going, right? Right. And then,
So-
then you're not
And they
eating or
can't get,
drinking.
right, and they can't get out. So, Leanne Moriarty, like the one, okay, so if I'm saying her name right. Like,
I think so,
yeah.
Moriarty.
So she has nine Perfect Strangers.
Mhm.
And then that was made into like a miniseries with Nicole Kidman or something like that. But there is a scene in that book where the people are all kept like contained, and they start, it's just interesting what happens when people, like, all the weirdness comes out when you're
Well,
stuck
yeah,
together and
families and
the
everything.
doors are locked, there's no water, there's no, and everyone starts to like devolve,
Right.
decompensate,
Right.
de something.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really good.
Good, thank you.
So then we were talking about Squid Game a little bit at dinner. And so I wrote, before we had, this is from earlier today, I have Squid Game written right in the corner here. So you haven't seen Squid Game?
I have,
Oh, you've seen they're not
not the current,
okay.
but the original.
But it made
movie.
me think a little bit like
The
that.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, although nobody's dying,
yeah. And that actually came out after, of course, I wrote that. book,
Yes,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
but I mean, there, clearly there's a fan base for this kind of.
Right, right.
People will ask you when you go to pitch a book or whatever, like, what are the themes? What's your overarching theme? And, there's all this high-minded talk about this. And a lot of times when we just start to write a story
Mhm.
and we know those themes are there, but we
Yeah.
don't really like spend a lot of time trying to like, we write the theme, you don't like sit there and list all of them out.
Right.
But I'm trying to think, I think it may have been Meg Goss's review or something, and she was talking about like the altruism and
It's in the back.
yeah, is she the one that talked about altruism and the
It's in here, could be wrong.
all the different things that you're kind of looking for in this person. It's good versus evil, but like why somebody would even want to do this?
Mhm.
And the fact that there were enough people wanting, so what was their motivation? Like, is it ego? Is it being altruistic? Was a combination? But you have all the characters who are, they're there for different reasons,
Mhm.
and they're maybe there for different reasons at different points in time.
Mhm.
So I just think it's really an interesting thing.
For way off in the future.
The way I look at it is the work. If they don't do something, and to a, thankfully a lesser extent than what we are now, but I think teenagers all feel that if I don't do something now, the world it's gonna explode, it's gonna die off, whatever. And this is even more so in this book
Mhm.
because there are 20 wars going on that are threatening nuclear annihilation.
Right.
So, no, in the book.
Oh, the book?
I'm talking about that. So that's also the motivating drive. But then, yes, individually, they all have their
Like reasons.
reasons.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
No, so I think I found that really fascinating because, our main character here is also, feeling super guilty. And so there's that will he, won't he thing, is he going to stay back with his dad,
Right.
and then
Right.
not go and be part of the trials. And, he's got that memory gap, which we do figure out in the second book.
Well, in the end of the first book.
Is it the end of the first book?
Yeah.
Oh, I put that in my brain in the second book.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
at the end.
All right. So, but it's I just think that motivations and it had to be fun to write all those characters as then, you've got the whole group on the first level or whatever, and then, it thins out as they go up. I mean, that had
You
to
had
be,
to figure out how to thin them out. right?
was that the best part of the writing? Or, was it the hardest part?
It was a little bit of both. A lot of it was tricky, because you've got 50 people. And you don't want to go on and on about each one and nobody cares. And, so
Yeah.
how do you get down to a
And you
board
can't be like, actually give them all names, and so it's like too
Right,
cumbersome.
right.
Yeah.
So that was a little tricky. And then there were people that stood out once I wrote them. Like, I love the tattoo twins. I think-
So you like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it
it's
works.
Just like how you identify with people.
Yeah, nail biter and
Right.
yeah, tattoo twins. I love that.
Like it's
They might have to have their own book.
Seidler,
Or
the
Smirker.
Yeah.
Smirker was not a great guy.
Well, I mean, how else are you gonna do that? Because they can't all be
Right.
like,
And you're not gonna, he doesn't meet them
well, he
until
doesn't,
later. then he
right,
gets
and he's
their
not gonna
names,
know, and he doesn't care.
And actually, that's the Stephen King thing. Stephen, I don't know if you know this, but Stephen King does that a lot.
He doesn't name
Say,
like a lot of he gives them their like,
You're standing in line, like in Cell.
The character
one of his
traits.
books, He's standing in line and he'll talk about powder blue. A suit lady in front of me and the kid with the walking man behind him. or whatever.
isn't that kind of,
imagery.
yeah, I mean, isn't that kind of what we do though?
It's exactly what we do. We don't mean anybody.
Right? Right?
Like,
Oh,
yeah,
whatever guy,
yeah.
like in your office building or whatever, the whatever guy,
Right,
the smoker
right.
guy,
right.
the one who's always out, right? You
The
just,
redhead, yeah.
I don't know. It made sense. Obviously, good versus evil is the theme,
Yeah.
your main theme. Redemption.
Mhm.
And I'm sure, and then there's revenge that will become, I'm sure, right? Right? I'm just really dying for that third book. So,
Yeah.
So if you remove all the evil from the world, then what does it mean to be good if you don't have the choice, if you're not making a choice to be good?
That's exactly the problem. So I also like philosophy a little bit. And so I did some research on, the old theory that if why is there evil in the world and there still can be a God? There shouldn't be a God if there's evil in the world. If he's all good and all knowing and all powerful, why is there evil? So there's a man named Alvin Plantinga, who I think he's still alive. He's in his 90s. And so he came up with, and this is simplistic in my mind. I'm sure it's much more involved than what I came up with. But so the problem is, the reason why there is evil is because it gives us freedom of choice. So if there was no evil, we would all be good. We would all do whatever's good all of the time. We can't choose that because that's all there is. But if there's evil in the world, now we have the choice.
Wow.
We can choose to do good, or we can choose to do evil. And that makes us people, human.
Right.
And so I thought that was really fascinating. So I thought I'm going to use some of that in the book and see how that works. And so then, of course, the tricky part is, well, how do these people look without any evil in them? And where do you draw the line? And one of my favorite movies is The Invention of Lying. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
No.
Oh my gosh, you should watch that movie.
Invention of lying?
Lying.
Lying.
The invention. Sorry, The Invention of Lying. It's with Ricky Gervais and what's Jennifer Gardner
Okay.
and Rob Lowe. And it's probably 15-ish years old, maybe older. Yeah, and it's a world that people cannot physically,
They can't
mentally lie at all. And he has this burst of where now he can lie. And so it's so not a lot of it. I say some of that came from that. But then there's a whole issue that would be a whole nother book because you'd have to deal with the line and the not line.
Liar too. With
Oh, yes. Yeah,
I've
right.
seen that one. Yeah,
With
yeah,
Jim Carrey,
yeah.
where he can't tell a lie. He's like zapped and he can't
Right.
tell a
Oh, I
lie.
haven't seen it. Yeah.
always wanted to know why little kids learn to lie. How does that even start?
Right.
It starts because they think they're gonna get in trouble.
And they're
for something.
protecting themselves.
Perfection.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I got in trouble last time.
So now I'm gonna say the dog did it,
Mm.
whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that was just the
Yeah.
whole idea that, okay, now there's no evil.
Right.
So what is that world gonna, and is it gonna be good?
Is
You know?
it, right, is it gonna be
I mean,
good?
it's obvious improvement right away because the world is so bad. That it is an obvious improvement, but then are there issues and what are those issues? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. What are those
What are
issues?
those issues? We will find out. Yes. There's also a book called Humankind, a hopeful history, not hopeless, hopeful history. It's by Rutger Bergman, something like that. And actually the fourth book is based on a lot of his philosophies in that. His idea was, so you know, Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
And he thought, that must have happened in real life. There must have been 6 boys or 8 boys or a group of boys that were stranded somewhere and had to survive on their own without adult supervision. And how did that work? And he found this group of boys, it was in the 70s, I believe it. They were in New Zealand area.
Yeah, there's a whole book about this,
Yeah,
right?
and so
Yeah.
they actually made a TV show, but it never went anywhere. So they stole a boat because they were bored and they got shipwrecked on an island, I don't know, like 1,800 miles away, a long way. And it was just the 6 of them. And when they found them, like 18 months later, a couple years later, they were fine. They were healthier than when they left.
Yes.
They did really well. They figured things out. If they argued, they said, okay, separate, go on either side, and then come back together, shake hands. So it's the opposite of what's in Lord of the Flies. And so in this book, he does this history, a lot of research, and it's basically, we are good. Humanly, we're good. We are at the core good. That's how we start out. It's our institutions that have said, oh, we're bad to start. And that's where they're from. So I'm not gonna go too much into it because that's in the fourth book. But
I heard it was the opposite. This true story of these boys, that they did slaughter each other and.
No.
No, well, maybe there's another one. This one, I remember reading and it was crazy great because of the way they cooperated and the way that they survived,
They could have lived
the
there
way
for-
they
they
shared
could have lived there their whole
resources and the way
lives.
they cultivated
Yeah.
resources and stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
pleasantly
But
surprised.
but that's one of many stories in this book. And it talks about World War II and it talks about, a lot of things. And actually they were true. No, not naturally. No, not my children.
I always think it's fun. So my husband doesn't understand why I like dystopian stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does anybody else? So I've always been a reader of dystopia stuff. Do you guys tend to even gravitate to stories like that? So
They're upsetting, aren't they? Yeah.
well, and the reason I like it isn't that I like the chaos of it and the thing that is making, the plot line, basically the thing that happened or whatever. Like if you take something like The Walking Dead, which I know is zombies and it's
Caitlin's a
not.
huge fan.
Okay. Yes, me too. Me too. And it's about the people and how people act and what they do when societal norms start to disintegrate. And to be honest, we saw a lot of this in the pandemic. We're probably only one serious power outage away from major chaos. I mean, it doesn't take long before we start to lose our minds. But I'm always just fascinated. And that's the thing that keeps me coming back to these kinds of stories. It's who bands together, who becomes the baddies immediately, the ones that are going to take advantage of everybody and the ones that don't, and then have, try to have an inclusive society.
Right.
And, protective walls. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. So have Caitlin, you've watched all of Walking Dead? Yeah. So we should talk.
I still don't understand how they can make more than one show out of it. I mean, you're just killing zombies, right?
No, I know. And so the thing about it is that my husband will walk through in the middle of like the zombie killing scene, which they have to have those, but that wasn't the story. The people, it was the relationships and
How
the
they overcome.
communities and how they were surviving. That was what was interesting. to me.
Right.
It's a true
I get
story.
that. there's a great zombie book called Patient Zero.
Oh,
And it was written by
yes.
Jonathan Maver, who was at a conference.
It's a good book.
And
It is a
Patient
good
Zero,
book.
and Caitlin, we listened to it. It was really well done. The premise of that is it's a virus that somebody's created on purpose as a terror weapon, and to make people into zombies and take, I won't give too much of it away, but that's the whole premise of the book. Yeah.
So the other
another dystopian
the other
from that
one,
angle.
so the other ones I like, and I don't know if you've read any of these, it's like sort of the EMP, like
Yes, I have
disaster
read a
where
couple
those.
of those.
So there's one, is it like 11 seconds after? or
Yeah,
something like that?
I think I
And-
listened to that.
Oh,
yeah.
so we brought that along on vacation and we had teenagers with it, whatever. That book was so tattered by then. 11 seconds after. Is that right?
Mhm.
11 seconds after. So everybody in our family read it through this vacation. It was all just whatever. But it's an interesting thing because, the EMP hits and then,
Just tell me.
this happened like 11 seconds.
Right.
The cars all stop. Well, then there's the people on the freeway near the small town who then have to go somewhere, but electricity's off.
So many
Anybody,
things you don't think about.
people on
It's
oxygen,
amazing.
on respirators. Oh, refrigeration's off. People who are diabetic, and then, and it just,
Did you read The Dome with Stephen King?
of course, I read the Dome with
Same
Stephen
thing,
King.
where they're cut off from society.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't think they did a great job with this show. I like the book better.
The book was just fine. It's very plot driven, not
Yes.
character driven.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
Now, there's a short story by Ursula Le Guin. who-
One of my favorites.
I
Yes.
can never remember the title because the name of the town is very different. It's Ocelos or something like that. And those who left Ocelos, I can remember the title, but it's a short story and a lot of you can see it. I got influence from because it's a utopian. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. Unbelievably beautiful. And then when the children of the town grow to, I think it's 8. I don't think it's 6. I think when they get to be 8, they learn the history, the actual how it became to be such a utopian. And the only reason it's that way is because they have a 6-year-old boy locked in a dungeon forever. And that little boy has to stay there for the rest of them to have a perfect life.
It's like
And
the,
so
it's
then-
like The Giver.
And so then there's a couple things people will do. Some will, just leave and that's the story. But I thought that's what you're doing. You're
I
sacrificing
think
one person.
yes.
And the morality of that, and
Yes.
the morality of that is just such a big struggle. It's like, this is what they're doing in this book.
The other story that I always think of is The Giver
Yes.
by
I
Lois
did read
Lowry.
that. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
also
Have you guys read The Giver?
so much more gross than my books.
Actually, yes.
So much more.
Actually, yes. There's some really horrible scenes.
Horrible.
horrible,
so
much more.
Are there 3 or 4 in that series? Gathering Blue is one of
I've
them.
only read the first book.
Yeah. Lois
very
Lowry, like that's often a middle
They made it to
school
movie
kind of
too,
like
didn't they?
assignment.
I think
Yeah.
There's a movie.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a movie.
Yeah.
It's also
Well,
kind of interesting.
my
So-
question is, when dystopian becomes reality, is it still dystopian?
No, and it actually, so that was a question and it was really funny to watch the discussion. So like the writer discussion boards about this during the pandemic. So if you wrote anything that had a pandemic kind of,
Right.
Are we there?
they're sort of like,
A
this
predictor.
isn't speculative fiction anymore.
Right.
Because sometimes you
So-
can call it speculative fiction.
And
Yeah.
I wrote that, so there's the law where in my book, the anti-assembly law, where only less than 10 people. I wrote that before the pandemic came out.
And you're gonna have a hard time.
That will never be a thing. in this country. Are you kidding? Do that? And then it's- and now it looks like
It was like us talking about I was talking about a story that I had started with Angie Stanton, who's been here before. And before the pandemic started, we started to co-write a story about a pandemic.
Oh, that's right.
And we're like, oh, we can't do this now.
Yeah, just nobody wants to read about it.
It was gonna be really good,
I'm
just so
sure.
y'all know.
That would be historical.
We got 4 sad chapters, that's it. That's all we got.
Yes.
In one part of your book,
Uh-oh.
cracked me up a little bit. It's gonna crack you up. It cracked me up. On his bedside table is the novel I gave him for his birthday.
I know, I totally forgot about that too.
Yeah.
So there's actually a story behind that, and that I had Lord of the Rings on there, and I had it throughout, because there's some parallels with taking over the throne, all that stuff. He hates Lord of the Rings mostly because of the series, the TV series. I had it there.
Oh,
And it was the last couple of
He does,
episodes. They
does
were
he?
so
No,
bad.
that's
They
too
were,
bad.
but they were so bad. I agree with him. So he's like, can't you come up with something better? I'm like, well, I should put my own book in there. So I did.
So are there more questions tonight? Do we want to talk more about disaster?
Larry was saying something.
Oh, Larry, no?
No, it was.
No.
Lori wasn't saying anything. No.
Were you thinking loudly?
When you send your DNA to 23andMe and that stuff, is it true that they own it?
Mhm.
That's true.
I have no idea.
What are they gonna do with it?
They're
Clone you?
looking for somebody.
Oh, they use it for something. I don't know.
Well, they have found criminals that way.
And bioweapons how to hurt you. At least that's everywhere. But they're looking for somebody, that's why they want the DNA.
No more questions? No?
So then after this 4, are you resting?
Kristen doesn't rest.
So actually next year I might have 4 books out. I haven't talked to you about this.
You have more going.
Well, so the 10th
job.
anniversary of my very first book is next year.
Are we
So,
already that? Oh,
Can you believe
wow,
that?
No.
so I'm thinking of redoing the covers and doing a whole, so that would be
Yeah.
one of the books.
That would be really fun.
I know,
to
I'm
do.
excited about
Well,
it.
and cover sensibilities, cover design sensibilities change.
They do.
And so there was a lot of talk at this conference about when they want to rebrand their series to make things fresh again.
Mhm. I love the covers. I absolutely love my covers of those books, but I think they need to be a little more suspenseful thriller aspects.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
There'll still be the jacket there and everything,
I
but
love the
still
jacket,
want it,
yeah.
yeah. So that's one. And then I have, I think a lot of this was inspiration from the conference. Because
It's like brain food when you go to those places,
really is.
isn't it?
the majority of people there, as I said, crank out as many books as possible, and I can't do that. But I do have, I don't know, 10 or 15 short stories that are 3 to 5 pages each.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And they're really fun. I love, they won some awards and everything else. I thought I should
you're
just
doing
put together.
anthology.
Yes,
Do
yes.
that.
So those would be easy to.
Oh,
to
for
get out
sure. You've
next
already
year.
written that. It's just a
Already
matter of
written
getting it formatted. Do you
Yeah.
do your own interior formatting?
I do. I go on Atticus.
Yeah. So
But if there's illustrations and stuff, that'll be a whole different.
that'll
thing.
be harder. to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those two, and then the third book in the Leo Townsend will be the next year. It's 30,000 words in, about a third of the way into it.
You've been
From
busy.
from years ago.
Oh, so you'll have to pick it up and.
It actually, the second book had those words in it and it was just too big, so I took out a whole chunk. And
Okay.
that'll be the third book. So I
We'll
don't know
have to
that.
reread because I have to like,
And then
get
I
back in
have,
the groove
I
with
have
those.
another similar, not a young adult necessarily, I don't know, it'd probably be an adult. Not necessarily dystopian, but it's called Karma Roulette. And I didn't come up with the title. Somebody at another conference or whatever came up
that's
with it.
really good.
And the idea is that at birth, everybody has 80 years. And you live healthy for 80 years, and on your 80th
Oh, you've
birthday, you die.
This.
But that can change according to how you lived your life. So if you were really good to people, you could maybe extend. If you murdered somebody, of course, you would die quicker. So that is one idea.
It's kind of like in
Yeah.
that time, the Justin Timberlake movie, right? In time.
Yes, where he's got.
Only it's all about time
And
and
they
it's.
pay with the time.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
In that right now.
Yeah. So that's another.
Did you
idea.
like that movie?
I did like that movie.
Yeah, me too. I think about that movie still sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
It's worth a watch. Basically, everyone has their life, the time you have left to live is here.
It
And you
clicks
get
down,
paid.
too.
Does it change?
Yes,
It chips
yes.
down.
Oh.
You have to
It
go
goes
up
down.
to pay each
And
other.
then you can, if
You
you
get
want
paid at
certain
work.
things, you can pay for more.
Yeah.
And you take away your
Like,
time.
There's rich people who have
There's-
tons of
And there's
time,
zones.
just like we have now, the 1%.
Where
Yeah,
people
but they're
live.
Forever,
They
right,
like-
Yeah.
right, the zones and everything.
Yeah.
else.
And so then rich people just like,
WEF,
Uh,
WHO.
for a game, they like
Bill Gates.
arm wrestle with the time, and that's how you give other people time,
Oh.
Yeah.
is like this.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
good.
kind of mind-bendingly fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
In time?
In
Justin
time.
Timberlake, just.
In,
look
I
up
think it's
Justin
in
Timberlake.
time.
He stars in it, which is kind of strange, but he does a good job.
Shh.
Oh, don't. Oh, it's
It's just, I don't know.
So anyway, that's another
But so you
idea.
can see why I get excited about this kind of story. So I'd be
Yes.
really excited
So
to
much
read
fun.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes,
Interesting.
got some ideas.
Oh my gosh.
And
you're
then, the
busy.
more you write, the more ideas that come.
This
you
is
know.
true. The more you exercise it.
My younger daughter wants another book from my Leo Townsend series.
Yep.
On Quinn, one of the characters.
Oh, so she wants like a side
Mhm,
story. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't heard Caitlin say or Jamie anything else that they want to split. Yeah, so.
That's smart though. That's smart. I mean, and that's an established like commodity, like you already know
Right.
those characters and
Right.
everything. So
Easier to write,
yeah.
quicker to write.
Will you and you'll appreciate going back to that world and stuff.
Yeah, it'll be easier to write one book at a time, not four. So,
So yeah, this has been sort of a really different sort of exercise in just arranging and plotting and all of it's big.
well, you're talking 300,000+ words.
Yes.
For one story.
Right.
So not only did I have to get the structure right for each book, but I had to structure for the whole series.
Yes.
And that was really tricky.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. But it's also when like you're clearly doing it well. So
you.
it's intriguing. I think you're gonna get more and more fans as more come out. And the thing is, once all 4 are out, then it's so much easier to promote it all
Right.
because people will buy them all. They'll
I
just read
hope so.
through it. So,
Yes. I
so
hope
there.
so. Yes,
And then
right.
I'll ask for more.
Yes.
And then you're gonna have to say
Go
whether you
next one.
decide, we'll come over here and read this other story now because
Right.
it's similar.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. We have more questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming. Thank you.